When you can't make it to City Hall or the school board meetings, local journalists from Duluth News Tribune will be there to report the facts and get your questions answered. Local news works for you. Stay up to date at duluthnewstribune.com.
Hello, Northlanders. It's Monday, July 17th. I'm Wyatt Buckner, the Duluth News Tribune Minute, presented by Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union.
The average MPECU member saves over $785 a year in better rates and lower fees. And with MPECU, every ATM is your ATM. With their free checking program, you get ATM fee reimbursements at any ATM anywhere in the U.S. Check out Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union's services online at mpecu.com or visit their offices in downtown Duluth, Arrowhead Road, or Miller Trunk Highway.
Now here's a look at today's headlines. A parachutist was airlifted to the hospital with injuries after hitting the ground hard while performing at the Duluth Airshow on Saturday. A Naval Special Warfare spokesperson confirmed a member of the U.S. Navy parachute team, formerly known as the Leapfrogs, was injured during the performance. The parachutist was in stable condition Sunday morning and being treated for his injuries, according to a statement from the Duluth Air and Aviation Expo. The parachute team's Sunday performance was canceled and an official accident investigation will be conducted. The rest of the expo was set to continue as planned. Just after 2 p.m. Saturday, a News Tribune reporter at the air show saw a parachute demonstration team member hit the ground hard after separating from another jumper during a stunt in which they were attached to each other at the feet. Both had chutes out during the maneuver. A News Tribune photographer said as the pair approached the ground, they split apart while horizontal. One jumper hit the ground while the other landed safely. The crowd gasped as the jumpers approached the ground at high speed, and the jumper impacted the ground near the announcer stand. The air show stopped as numerous emergency personnel surrounded the injured parachutist. The medical helicopter landed at the scene just before 2:30 p.m. and left with the injured jumper. The air show resumed by about 2:45 p.m. The pause was a somber interval in a day that otherwise had a carnival atmosphere, with attendees browsing displays and parking their portable chairs to watch several hours of aerial entertainment. The accident happened during a second appearance by the U.S. Navy parachute team, who also opened the show with several jumpers trailing streams of color and carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Authorities are investigating after human remains were found along the Nemadji River on Saturday. A family canoeing along the river reported the remains around 1:30 p.m. southeast of the Sioux Line ATV Trail and Minnesota Highway 23 intersection, the Carleton County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. First responders searched the woods nearby and found the body along the bank of the river. The body was turned over to the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office. The person's name is being withheld until authorities can make a positive identification and notify next of kin. U.S. Representative Pete Stauber was among 70 House Republicans who voted to cut all U.S. military aid to Ukraine. The proposed amendment to the defense spending bill failed 70 to 358, with all Democrats and the vast majority of Republicans voting against it on Thursday. The $868 billion National Defense Authorization Act itself, which had Stauber's support, passed the Republican-controlled House on Friday morning, largely along party lines, 219 to 210. 4 Republicans voted against it and 4 Democrats voted for it. Democrats withheld support after Republicans attached amendments targeting abortion, gender transition procedures, and diversity, equality, and inclusion programs in the military. However, several amendments introduced by Republicans to curb financial support to Ukraine in its nearly year-and-a-half-long war with Russia did not pass. The amendment to cut all military aid, introduced by Representative Matt Gaetz, Republican Florida, was just one sentence long, quote, "Notwithstanding any provision of this or any other act, no federal funds may be made available to provide security assistance to Ukraine," end quote. Stauber of Hermantown defended voting for it in a statement to the News Tribune on Friday, citing a lack of transparency from the Biden administration as well as billions and billions in unaccounted for money and equipment, and quote, "no strategic plan to end the conflict," end quote. But earlier this year, a report by inspectors general at the U.S. Department of Defense Office, Department of State, and United States Agency for International Development offices found no widespread fraud at the time. Their offices continue to oversee the handling of U.S. aid sent to Ukraine. Stauber also backed another failed amendment introduced by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Georgia, that would have cut $300 million in funding to Ukraine. That amendment failed Thursday in an 89 to 341 vote. Stauber has voted for aid to Ukraine in the past. In April 2022, within 2 months of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, he voted to send $40 billion to the country. And in the hours after Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022, Stauber tweeted that Russia's attack was unprovoked and unacceptable and urged the U.S. and allies to stand strong with Ukrainians. Now Dan Williamson joins us with a special guest.
Thanks, Wyatt. I'm joined by one of our colleagues, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter Jay Gabler. And Jay is working on a story we'll be able to see in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune. You can also find it online prior at duluthnewstribune.com. We're celebrating a big milestone, a big anniversary for the Lake Superior Zoo, 100 years young.
Yes, I mentioned to people I interviewed at the zoo that they're not going to get another digit for 900 years, turning 100 years this year. The Lake Superior Zoo, founded as the Duluth Zoo in 1923, and they're celebrating with a party this coming Friday. So I got to sit down with a few zoo employees, including CEO Haley Hedstrom, to talk about not just the past of the zoo, but its future.
Imagine a lot of takeaways from a story like this. What was the biggest thing you took away?
I was fascinated to learn how the zoo, although it is still in the same place and has at least one of the same buildings that was there when it opened 100 years ago, has really lived a lot of different lives. And I'm not just talking about the different lives of the different animals that have called the zoo home. They have done a lot of things, had a lot of programs, built and taken down a lot of buildings and exhibits and what have you, as they have changed to meet the needs of the community and people's changing ideas about what a zoo is, can be, should be. So, for example, I learned that as they're pivoting more into conservation and sustainability, they're becoming more of a home for animals, not just from our region, but from around the world who thrive in cold weather climates. It's kind of a unique opportunity that the zoo has as this northern zoo with a lot of outdoor area to be a happy home to animals from cold weather climates, whether they be in North America or Siberia. So they can serve that function of being a place where you can go to see both local animals from the Northland and animals from far away, while also being a really happy home to animals who love cold weather climates. I also learned how they are working, especially as they are fundraising towards a replacement of their main building. That'll be years yet in the making, but they're moving towards being a place that's not just a destination where you visit if you're a tourist or maybe once a year, you kind of check in, but it is really part of the day-to-day life of people in the community and people who come through this community. So, for example, if and when this new building does get built, I think it's a matter of when, not if, but, not to speak out of turn here, they are still fundraising for it. But plans are to make it a place that you can come and just hang out, especially they're thinking in those cold weather months when maybe you don't want to spend a lot of time outside, but you would love to go with your family and enjoy the amenities, the community, the education opportunities the zoo has to provide. So they've got a lot of plans in place for coming years.
What do you hope our audience takes away from this article?
I'm sure that we'll learn a lot about the history of the zoo and the future of the zoo just because there's so much to learn. It's amazing how much I picked up researching this article. Also, found some fun images from the News Tribune's own archive. So you will have a little trip back in time when you look at the photos with this article. I also think it's interesting to reflect on the zoo's efforts towards sustainability. The success of those efforts is going to be up to the community to judge, but they are really working to try to make the space as accessible to all as possible. That does mean financial accessibility with various efforts to make sure that people are able to afford admission to the extent possible, but also efforts to make the whole community feel welcome in the space. So if people who are in our readership check out the zoo, maybe for the first time in a while, I'd be curious to hear what they think about the zoo's efforts towards accessibility, whether they've been successful, whether people feel welcome there, and anything else you'd like to share about the zoo. I'm sure the zoo would love to hear it, and, so would I. Drop a note.
Absolutely. Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
And again, you can find Jay's article in Wednesday's print edition of the Duluth News Tribune. You can also find it online prior at duluthnewstribune.com. Wyatt, back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Now here's a look at your forecast, brought by Superior Telegram's history podcast, Archive Dive.
Weather for the Duluth area today, looking at a slight chance of rain showers and high temperatures around 70 degrees this afternoon. Partly cloudy once we get into the overnight hours and temperatures dropping down into the mid-50s. A lot more sunshine for Tuesday, and temperatures climb up into those low to mid-70s. More chances of rain for Wednesday. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist Robert Pointer.
Thank you to Archive Dive for their support. The monthly history podcast, hosted by Superior Telegram reporter Maria Lockwood, dips into the archives of historic events, people, and places around Superior and Douglas County. A new episode titled The Founders of Gordon is now available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you also get this podcast. Reporting for today's episode was done by Jimmy Lovren, Clint Austin, Jay Gabler, and Barrett Chase. Thank you for listening to the Duluth News Tribune Minute. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.